Hello YouTube, thanks for stopping by my channel. And in this video I want to talk about briefly one of the degenerative diseases. Well, which one are you going to talk about today, Jim? Heart disease. Heart disease. And I want to talk about it. And this is something that, as you can tell from my previous videos, I've been talking about health and taking care of ourselves and different things in regards to diseases and whatnot. So this one's been on my mind, and so I wanted to talk about it. And here's the interesting thing. I got two different books here. One written in 1974, one written in 2007. And I just find it incredible how we have been talking about different things years ago, and then yet fast forward now in time, and here we are in 2024, and it just seems like some things just never change or they get worse. And I just find that interesting that you have people that have been talking about heart disease since the 40s and even prior to that, and studies being done in the 50s and 60s that show low fat, low cholesterol diets prevent you from having a heart attack, or you have the less likelihood of having a heart attack and a stroke. Low fat, low cholesterol diets. And then by testing somebody's cholesterol level, you can get a pretty good idea of somebody's risk of a heart attack. And so I shared this stuff. I get the information and I want to share it with others. I do this because I guess I care for my fellow man. And I'm just glad that I've gotten the information. And so this is just something of recent, as I will be 52 years old here in December. My health is just something that I just want to maintain. And I don't want to be a person that has multiple chronic diseases as I age. It's just something that has just got a hold of me, and I'm glad that it has. And I found this book here, 1974 copyright, Live Longer Now, The First 100 Years of Your Life by John N. Leonard. L. Hoffner, or J.L. Hoffer, and Nathan Pritikin. There it is right there. You can read it yourself. And let me read something for you here, because I'm not that smart. That's why I read books. And when you're reading a book, you're spending time with smart people. These people have done the research. They've done the studies. They did it. Why reinvent the wheel, right? When somebody else has already done it. So I read this information, cross-reference the data, right? Think for myself and come up with my own conclusions, right? I think that's a good way to do things. Listen to this. Hey Siri, what is the leading cause of death in the United States?
Heart disease. This answer is from the Centers for Disease Control.
Centers of Disease Control. And you can look that up yourself. That is still a leading cause of death in the United States. And get this, we have more young people now, ages 40 and younger having heart disease and heart attacks, and even more so post-COVID. So it makes you wonder what's going on there when we got so many young people now having heart problems and heart disease and heart attacks now, ever since that 2020 situation that went on. From this book, 1974, heart disease starts young in the United States. Like other degenerative diseases, heart disease is ordinarily present for a long time in the body before drastic symptoms appear. In fact, in our country, heart disease often begins in the early 20s, growing worse as the years pass until finally the inevitable heart attack strikes. For most people, the first heart attack does not come until the 50s or 60s. My age. But for thousands of people every year, the first heart attack comes in the 20s, and more so now. Occasionally, even a person in his teens may experience a fatal heart attack. It is a big surprise for most people to think of heart disease as being part of the early 20s, but this is nevertheless evidently so. Several studies have been done to determine how widespread heart disease is in young people. Such studies have been difficult to do, however. The reason for this is that a person has died in many times can be determined whether or not the person had a case of heart disease while he was living. But it has been relatively hard to know while a person is living whether or not the person has heart disease. Thus, studies of how much heart disease is present in seemingly healthy young people are not easy to perform. However, during the Korean and Vietnam Wars, many young men were killed who were in all ways healthy right up until the time they met death on the battlefield. In both of these wars, a careful study was performed on the hearts of hundreds of young soldiers killed in battle to see how widespread heart disease was in American soldiers. And me being an American soldier, or was an American soldier, but I will have to say, I still consider myself a soldier through and through. I digress. And then it talks about here, before discussing the results of these wartime studies, we need to say a word about how we can tell that a heart is diseased. Almost all heart attacks are caused indirectly by the arteries that carry blood around in the heart. In our country, people's arteries tend to develop plaques, which are like festering sores on the inside walls of the arteries. Plaques have a tendency to grow in size, and when they do, they can block off the flow of blood in various arteries in the body. Or sometimes those plaques will pop, and then all that debris starts to float downstream in the artery and then can block another artery. It's kind of interesting how that all happens, and then blood starts to clot, and pretty nasty. Or it just closes up like a pipe. Like a rusty pipe, In some of the arteries that deliver blood to the heart muscle, the coronary artery, become blocked. Then part of the heart muscle may die from lack of blood. When this happens to a person, he suffers, or her, a type of heart attack known as an infarction, right? Myocardial infarction, heart attack. And so I'll continue down to the soldier study. Let's see. Even if the person has never had an actual heart attack, we can rate the amount of heart disease he has by the amount of plaque blockage that he has in the coronary arteries. This is exactly what was done with hundreds of young American soldiers who were killed in Korea and Vietnam. The amount of heart disease present in these young men was determined by careful autopsy examination of their arteries just after they met their death. In Korea, 300 autopsies were performed. I didn't know this was done. Interesting. And in more than half of the cases, artery damage from plaques was obvious in the coronary arteries. Already, the average age of the men at the time of their death was 22 years. In 1971, more than 100 autopsies performed on American soldiers killed in South Vietnam, using more advanced methods to determine artery damage. In this case, it was found that 45% of the autopsies showed evidence of medium artery damage. In another 5% of the autopsies, there was evidence of severe artery damage. The average age of the soldiers in the South Vietnam case was also about 22 years. It is a safe bet that young Americans killed in Korea and South Vietnam are just like the rest of young men back home as far as heart disease is concerned. Therefore, the average American man of the same age is likely to have the same amount of heart disease as the group of men studied in Korea and Vietnam. This means that today, about half of American men in their early 20s have already started building up their case of heart disease. Data regarding the prevalence of heart disease in young women is harder to come by, and for this reason, no one knows how prevalent heart disease is in young women. But we know more so today, though. Again, this was in 1974. All right, let's move up a little bit sooner here, or more recent. This book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn. Right here. And he worked right here where I'm from, 50 miles east of here, Cleveland Clinic, Ohio man. And he's still alive in his 90s. Here are the facts. Now we're 2007. Coronary artery disease is the leading killer of men and women in Western civilization in the United States alone. Look at that. 33 years later, this book was written. And here we go, knowing doggone well about all this. And here we are. This is why I'm sharing this. It's just like, folks, and is a leading killer of men and women in Western civilization. In the United States alone, more than 500,000 people die of it every single year. 3 times that number suffer known heart attacks, and approximately 3 million more have silent heart attacks, experiencing minimal symptoms and have no idea until well after the damage is done. And they are in mortal danger. In the course of a lifetime, 1 out of every 2 American men and 1 out of 3 American women will have some form of the disease. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I wanted to just bring to light on how we still continue to have these problems, this degenerative disease, heart disease, in this country and Western countries. And it's absolutely preventable. Absolutely preventable. And I know I was on my way for a heart attack. I've never had one, thank the Lord. But I had high cholesterol. And here I was, one of those soldiers in the military, eating the standard American diet. I was eating in the Army Chow Hall. And what did the diet consist of? I was eating bacon, eggs, consistently, sausage, pancakes with butter on them, sausage gravy. I mean, I even grew up on a lot of that stuff too, eating all that. The sausage gravy and all the fatty stuff and the meatloaf and the hot dogs and all that cholesterol and fat growing up, and then all through the Army as well. And I remember, when I would get my physicals in the Army, my cholesterol was high to borderline high. And so I know darn well my arteries were showing, as it discussed in here, how the plaques form. I'm sure I had plaques forming in my body and well on my way to something. Who knows what it may have been. And when I was a kid, a teenager, I had appendicitis. And doing my research, that's caused from a poor diet. So I know darn well that's what that was caused from. And I remember when my appendix ruptured, and it was so painful. I felt like I could have literally died. I remember I felt so bad. My thought was at the time I wanted to crawl up underneath a tree and just die. That's how bad I felt. It was awful. I told my dad, I said, I'm hurting. I need, it was in my lower, it wasn't on my right side. It was actually where my bladder was, is where my pain was, but it ended up being a ruptured appendix. And he took me to the emergency room, and I'll never forget that. And I was a sick puppy for a couple of weeks. And then caught pneumonia in the hospital. Man, oh man. But I had a nice nurse. She was a nice nurse. I remember her. Wonderful lady. And then found out she lived right in town here, close by. It's like, oh, anyhow. But I was one of those soldiers that ate that way and ate the MREs and, our field type rations. And I know those things were full of fat and salt and cholesterol. And when you're a young man, you never think about stuff like that. I ate whatever I wanted. I never thought twice about it. Never thought twice about it. Burgers and fries and pizza and cheese and cream, and never gave it any mind. Just young and dumb and full of it, But now I know better. I know better, and I'm so thankful that I've got the information now to turn things around. And I know by changing my diet, and so just for me personally, I'm now a whole foods plant-based person. So I don't consume any animal-based products at all. That's just my personal preference. And so I know that I am reversing the heart disease. So if I have it in my body, I've been on this diet now over a year. July 4th, 2023 was when I started. I just said enough of the meat, enough of the dairy. I said enough of it. I quit eating it and just went complete whole foods, plant-based. And I eliminated the caffeine, a lot of the sugar I was consuming, the oils. I quit all the oils, no oil. I don't cook with oil, none of that. Anything with oil in it, not even olive oil. And so if I need to cook something in the pan, I just use a little light coating of cooking spray in the skillet. If I'm heating up some mashed potatoes or something, mashed potatoes and peas, I love that. That's a meal right in itself for me. Mashed potatoes and peas, things like that. And I'll heat it up in the skillet and eat that, and that's a meal for me. So I don't do the eggs, I don't do the bacons, I don't do any of that. And it was an adjustment, changing my diet, big time adjustment. Even cut out the coffee, the caffeine. Yeah, it was an adjustment, and just retweaked my taste buds. And so now I don't miss that stuff. I don't miss a steak. I don't miss the bacon. I don't miss a hamburger. I don't miss eating a pizza. No, not at all. Not at all. And even the sweet stuff, the ice cream, the cakes, the cookies that I just used to consume in huge amounts. And that was a big thing when I would come home from work. It was like my soothing thing was I ate food for comfort, and I loved nothing more than a nice bowl of ice cream with some cookies, glass of milk, or a piece of cake with ice cream. Now I don't consume that. If I want something sweet, at night, what I'll do is I'll eat fruit, mixed fruit. And I found this Olive Tap online. That's the olivetap.com, I think it is. And they have all these different vinegars. And they have a chocolate, believe it or not, a chocolate balsamic vinegar. And it's like chocolate syrup, like a Hershey's chocolate syrup. You put that on your fruit. Oh, it's delicious. Very, very good. And then other vinegars. And you can put that balsamic vinegar on your broccoli or whatever. It's just really good. So I've had to change my whole diet, and I've discovered new foods that I've never even eaten before, grains that I've never eaten before. I'm like, wow, I really like this. I really enjoy it. And so this new diet, new food, and I feel good. I've never felt better, and I really feel good knowing that I'm putting healthy things in my body, and I'm not doing things to create heart disease. And by preventing heart disease, I'm also preventing other diseases as well because of my diet. And so I'm preventing stroke and other things, and cancers and colon cancers and Crohn's disease and diabetes and high blood pressure. So I don't have to worry about it. And that's a good feeling. And I truly believe by discovering this information of years recent, I have added years to my life. I have added years. Lord willing, nothing crazy happens. Anything can happen in this crazy world that's, you don't know from day to day, and you have to be thankful each and every day. And when you walk out your front door. But I truly believe I've added years to my life, and that's personally what I want, and quality of life. And so I don't take any medications. I'm not on any medication. The only thing I do take is a vitamin B12. And that's because I'm not a meat eater. And then B12 is actually a bacteria that the animal eats. And so, and then they get it in their body, and that's how come people, meat eaters, you get your B12. But I don't. So, or I can get B12 in fortified foods, almond milk, that has some of those different types of milks. I don't do soy milk. I stay away from the soy products. But I do like almond milk. And it's got some B12 in it. But I take like a B12, and then I'm good to go. And that's all I take, not even a multivitamin. After learning that those things are very toxic for you, and that whole thing. So I'm living it. I'm doing it. I've changed it. I feel good. As a 51-year-old male, I'll be 52, like I said, in December. And so I just want to share that. So it's something that we need to really seriously consider out here, folks, is if you're not healthy or you're carrying extra weight, you're not eating right, there's time to turn it around, and we can prevent these things, and in many cases we can then halt it, completely reverse it. And the body is amazing, and it will heal itself. The body will begin to heal itself almost immediately, within days. Even somebody who's smoking, they quit smoking, just within a few days, their body is already starting to heal itself from not puffing on them cigarettes. It's truly, truly remarkable. So anyway, that was all. Heart disease, the topic of this video. Diet, folks. And we don't have to have it. We don't have to be a part of the statistic that is killing people every day, it seems. We can prevent it. You can prevent it by changing your habits and lifestyle. And so for yourself and for your family. There's people that are counting on us, and they want us around. And so anyway, not to go much longer and ramble on. That was it. Again, thank you. Thanks for stopping by my channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care of yourself.